Well, hello. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Eli is first. Best student ever. Hello, joint specialist. Good morning. LeBron is here. We've missed you too. Good morning, T-Lag. All right. Yeah. So, class, I hope you had a good week. It seems to be a little bit quieter in the news the last few days. I mean, I know we had Hillary Clinton yesterday answer some questions regarding the Epstein files. For some reason, they interrogated her and not Melania Trump. Hillary Clinton, by the way, has never been to Epstein Island. I know we have problems with Hillary Clinton, but come on. And then today, I think Bill Clinton is supposed to be answering questions, and it's not televised. It's not live streamed anywhere like they wanted. If it was, maybe we'd react to that, but it's not. So we'll have to find out with the press release or press conference after. Anyway, yeah, Big Bill takes the stand today. Hello, how you doing there? XO Loit. Okay, I'm not going to say that. Aaron Pot is here. Oh gosh, I hope not, Aaron. Good morning, Saycon. Good morning, Green Hood. Mrs. Beat. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah. So for those who are not aware, Mrs. Beat and I live in Lawrence, Kansas. Last week, ICE was here. They were in and out. They made a couple of arrests, and then they just disappeared, kind of going back and forth between here and I think other cities in Kansas. They're targeting, obviously, places where they're more friendly to immigrants. Not good. Yeah, not good. If it gets bad enough, we'll go out and protest it. But again, if they're here and they're gone before we even get a chance, it's kind of hard. They've been a little bit sneakier lately. Hello, Lankoon Love. Hello. Sir Butts is here. Okay, now we can get started. Okay. Eli emailed your state representative, your state senator, as well as your city council about urbanism. Okay, nice. Good for you. Thanks for doing that. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man. Good morning. Yeah, I love the username there. Oh my gosh, that's totally the video I was going to react to. Ryan Getty's video about amending the Constitution. How'd you know this? That's literally the one I already had planned. I had it queued up already. That's wild. Yeah, that's the one I'm going to react to today. But there's something else I want to react to first. So before we get to the Ryan Getty video about adding amendments, there's a couple things. Yeah, State of the Union, I didn't watch, obviously, probably to many of you. Why would I watch that? I'm not going to learn much. But plus, I don't want to give him ratings. I saw a couple clips. It's the longest of all time, the longest State of the Union address in American history. He only surpassed his previous record. Trump was the one who had the longest State of the Union in American history prior. Remember that for about 100 years, over 100 years, the State of the Union wasn't even spoken out loud. It was just written down and submitted to Congress. It is a constitutional requirement. The Constitution says you have to give a State of the Union, but it doesn't have to be spoken out loud. He could just write it down, but Trump doesn't really write. Yeah. Anyway, State of the Union, meh. We'll all forget about it here soon. I don't think it was really that big a deal. Yeah, Gavin Newsom. So this was a big thing that happened. So 1 week ago, when I live streamed, I didn't know this was going to happen. So that was a crazy development since I saw you last. On Friday, it was like late Friday afternoon. My friend who knows Gavin Newsom's media team reached out, says, "Hey, they said that that you can meet Gavin Newsom." And I said, "Oh, well, that's cool," but it was in South Carolina, and we're in Kansas, so it's a long ways away. And I said, well, will they pay for travel? Like, this is and they said, yeah. And I said, well, I don't want to go all the way there and not get a chance to talk to him. Can I at least get 10 minutes to interview him? And they said, yeah. So I was like, okay, let's do this. And Mrs. B was like, I want to join you, help you out filming. We both hopped on a plane Sunday night, got in on Monday. Monday was the day it happened. It was a whirlwind. Gavin Newsom, of course, the governor of California, who is one of the front runners to be president already at 2028. Although there's a lot of people that do not like that man. I will say a lot of my viewers think he's too corporate, that he's too cozy with the billionaires, but I don't care. The opportunity to interview somebody who might be president was pretty cool for me. And so that's why I was excited to interview him. I got a little over 10 minutes with him. I just posted the interview a couple of days ago. And, he did dodge my question about uncapping the House, but it's honestly, I don't think it's something he's really thought that much of, and it doesn't really affect him anyway, because, he's not in Congress. So why would he care about that? But I still wanted to raise awareness about the issue. The more prominent politicians I can tell, hopefully, the more I can raise awareness about this. Other updates about this uncapping the House, it is gaining momentum. I also released a video on Monday saying I'm just going to straight up endorse candidates who officially add uncapping the House to their platform. And so I already have a list of endorsed candidates. I'll share that with you right now. It's honestly, this list is probably going to grow quite a bit in the coming days and weeks. But right now, these are the officially 5 candidates that I have endorsed. And interestingly, one of them is a Republican. One of them is an independent. The others are running as Democrats. But all of them have fully committed to uncapping the House if they get elected. And I'm also talking to about 6 other people right now. Colin McRoberts, who I've already endorsed, is running specifically against Tracy Mann, who is my representative, who I've been trying to reach for the past nearly 2 months now, and he's not responding to my question why he doesn't support uncapping the House. Not very cool dude. And so that's why it's been kind of cool. It's been a little bit crazy to think that now the guy who's running against Tracy Mann is for uncapping the House. McRoberts isn't the only one running against Tracy Mann. He has a primary opponent. Her name is Lauren Ryan. Lauren Ryan? I gotta make sure I say her last name right. Lauren. Oh my gosh. I don't want to mess it up. Reinhold. She's also running. I met her last night at an event at the Dole Institute. And she's a little bit more skeptical about uncapping the House, but in her defense, she wants to learn more about it before she commits. And honestly, I respect her more for that. She's not just like jumping into it. But in the defense of these 5 people that you see on the screen right now, they actually they already watched my videos. They were Mr. Beat viewers. And so if you're a Mr. Beat viewer already, you're probably already going to be familiar with uncapping the House and more willing to take it on. If you're someone running for Congress and you have never heard of me, that probably means you've never heard of the idea of uncapping the House. And so, yeah, you need to do your research. And so I will endorse Lauren if she decides she wants to go through with it. Even if she doesn't, I'm still probably going to vote for her because Tracy Mann has been a big disappointment so far, not responding to me at all, even though I've written him every single day for the past 2 months. Speaking of last night at the Dole Institute, I have a story about that too. Mrs. Beat was with me. We went to this event last night at the Dole Institute. Oh yeah, you should call your representative. Of course, Heartman, do it. Please do it. Call your representative and tell them to uncap the House. My goodness. ISOT.org. Okay, this is a great website. Yes, thanks for sharing that. On campus. Oh, that's just lovely. Thank you, Ty Jones. Thanks for calling your reps about this. Yes, you signed up to be a poll worker already. Wow, that is amazing. Remember, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Thanks for doing that. I'm very inspired by, I hope others get inspired by you doing this as well. That's really cool. I really don't like Trump, but I'm just saying I'm not voting for Gavin. I mean, I get the hate for Newsom. Yeah, I get this. I get it. But it made you like him even less. Oh, what's with that release? Yeah, I got this sticker. Mrs. Beat got it for me. I don't know. I think they should release. Only half of the Epstein files have been released. They never released all of them. Did you know that? You probably didn't know that, did you? So yeah, the Trump administration has been, this might surprise some of you, breaking the law. Yeah, it's so surprising that the Trump administration would break the law. Okay, anyway, something else about last night before we get started here. This is kind of so last night, Mrs. Beat and I went to this event at the Dole Institute, which, as you recall, I was a fellow at the Dole Institute last year. It was an incredible experience. I really enjoyed it. They invite me back to go to events, and we just were in the audience. And on stage was Jerry Seib, who is a Wall Street Journal reporter for many years, a close collaborator with Bob Dole before he passed, helped get that Dole Institute started. He is hosted several presidential debates, and he also, here, I'll put him on the screen so you see what he looks like here. That's Jerry. And he hosted two pollsters, one Republican, one Democrat, and they were just kind of speculating, giving their insights about the upcoming 2026 midterms. And throughout the entire talk, they kept saying that the Democratic Party has a branding problem. And I would agree with that. Despite the Republican Party being very unpopular, thanks to the unpopularity of Donald Trump, that doesn't matter so much because the Democratic Party is just as unpopular, if not more unpopular than the Republican Party. The Democratic Party has a real problem right now. They theoretically should sweep the midterms, both the House and the Senate, but because the Democratic Party, because their brand is still tainted, I think it's an uphill battle to win back Congress. And so I think we have obvious solutions, though. But let me just play this for you first, and I want to get your reaction to it. So at the end, they did a Q&A, and this video is on their YouTube channel. It was live streams, and there was this wacky dude who had a question in the audience. Check out this guy.
Right there. Just a reminder that a question is not a speech, and it actually has a question mark at the end of it. So anyway, let's start there.
So you both mentioned there's a branding issue with the Democratic Party right now. But if you look at polls about national prominent Democratic politicians, two of them tend to be very popular right now, Bernie Sanders and Zohran Mamdani. So is that an indication to the Democratic Party that maybe that's how we need to change the branding?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Your fondest dream, Adam.
we're gonna have all these primaries. I'm glad you brought up Mamdani because I love this guy. I don't know if you've seen him over since he's been mayor. Everything.
So the guy in the middle, he is the Republican, Adam, who was like, yeah, we want Mamdani. It's completely, and then the guy on the left, Jerry, he kind of is laughing at it too. The guy on the right's the Democrat, who is laughing, but he does have some insightful things to say about Mamdani. But I found it interesting that these three just immediately, their first impulse was to laugh at the idea that, Zohran Mamdani and Bernie Sanders are two of the most popular, not only Democrats in the country, but politicians in the country. And when you keep talking about how the Democratic Party has a branding problem, it is remarkable to me how out of touch these guys are to continue to just think, oh, yeah, your establishment Democrats they just have to change their ways. No, the establishment Democrats are the freaking problem. Yeah, the laughing is insulting and belittling. Yeah, it rubbed me the wrong way. Mrs. Beat was next to me. She didn't know this was going to be like the camera would be on me, by the way. That was kind of, I didn't expect it either, but oh, it was kind of hard to hear. Yeah, the volume on their channel is really low. They need to figure that out. But anyway, okay, LeBron gets it, as always. LeBron gets it. I saw polls saying Mamdani is among the most popular Democrats nationwide with like 70% plus approval rating in New York City specifically. It's not just New York City. I think the way forward for the Democratic Party is, frankly, Mamdani type politicians. Those who talk about how the economy is rigged for the rich. If the Democratic Party doesn't learn that this year, then they will fail in the upcoming midterms. I'm sorry. That's a reality that these gentlemen apparently don't want to hear. I mean, they've been in the polling business for so long. How do they not know this? It's astounding to me how they cannot know this. But let's hear what the gentleman on the right had to say, because, you know, he at least was open to some of the rhetoric that Mamdani was saying, what Mamdani said when he campaigned.
That he puts out is transactional.
Just turn up the volume.
politics. Like he's talking, like literally about snow plowing, about kids, everything he does. He ran a race on the cost of living of groceries, transportation, and housing. He was the best economic messenger. He didn't run as a Democratic Socialist. He ran about fixing problems. He understood messaging. He was a good-looking guy, dynamic, et cetera, always had a business suit on, et cetera. So I wouldn't look at the personality and the message, and it's, by the way, it's New York City. What I would do is what Adam says. Go to these primaries. You know, again, Democrats get really pragmatic when they're out of office. And Michigan is the perfect example. You have, you know, Haley Stevens, who would be considered the moderate, and then you have two progressives, right? Two liberals. I wouldn't use the word progressive. And, you know, who the nominee is will matter about whether Rogers, who's the Republican and lost by 0.3 of 1% just two or 4 years ago. So, you know, the primaries are going to answer your question, right? The fact is that Bernie Sanders ran for president twice, and Democratic primary voters, who everyone likes to believe are liberal, really aren't as liberal as you think about it. Democratic primary voters aren't an AOC caucus, and that's not. You know, she has a great following, and she means a lot, and she's an important voice. But they're more moderate than you think. And the fact is that, again, I mean, you know, people picked Joe Biden in 2020, even though there were progressives and liberals in the race, because they thought he could beat Trump. And that's how I think Democrats and Republican primary voters, when they're out of power, they think more pragmatically than ideologically.
Well, guess what? Harris lost the last election, so guess that wasn't so pragmatic, was it? But yeah, I think that's basically it. He just downplayed the whole thing. Yeah, very good point there. I think that's why it's so critical that you listening to this right now vote in the primaries. For many of us, the primaries are in the late spring or in the summer, so we have some time to research, check out all the candidates. But in Texas, the primaries have already started for the Senate, for example. By the way, James Tellerico, I think, you know, I like Jasmine Crockett, but I think James Tellerico probably is better equipped to win that race than Crockett is. But yeah, I think he's right about 2020. But yeah, see, it's like he's kind of in this old mentality. It's just very out of touch to me. And yeah, I think that maybe these gentlemen will be surprised in the upcoming primaries that, yeah, more progressive type, anti-establishment type might be the better way to put it. Candidates will win the primaries. There was always too much focus from Democrats on trying to win over independents, disillusion Republicans instead of activating their base. Yeah, 100%. I agree tremendously with it. In fact, the other guy, Adam, the Republican strategist, brought up that point. He said that's the reason why Trump, his base is so strong, that it doesn't matter that some some independents are once again turning away from Trump. Latinos and Hispanics, African Americans that they had gained in 2024 have now turned away from Trump. He says it still may not matter as long as his base is still fired up. Now, my counter argument to that is his base is not as fired up as they used to be. In fact, many of them probably won't even show up to midterms to vote. I bet many of them don't even vote. And that's good news for the Democrats. But they shouldn't sleep on this. I mean, they have to be for something. Gavin Newsom even told me this on Monday. He's like, the Democratic Party has to be reform-minded. They can't just count on the Republican Party politicians screwing up. Democrats have to be for actual reforms. That's true. In fact, okay, so that's the thing. Like, we need to stop framing politicians like Mamdani and Sanders as far left, or as, I mean, you can call them democratic socialists, social democrats, whatever. Their platforms are popular. If you look at it issue by issue, what they want, that's what most Americans want. So maybe the labeling is the problem, like Plattner versus Mills. I haven't been following that too closely, but yeah, I think isn't Plattner like the more kind of populist guy the guy with the beard running in Maine? Okay, so you have a question, Nebulon. Hello, thank you. What do you need to do to finish citizenship? Oh, you mean like undocumented immigrants? I think that we should just make it really easy for them to become legal. I'm making a documentary right now following my friend who's becoming a citizen. She gets sworn in soon, and I'm very excited. And there's other people I've interviewed who are going through the process, or who have. I have my cousin's wife became naturalized. She's from Peru, and it's a very strenuous, difficult, complicated process for most people. And I just think it can still be difficult, because this is a big freaking deal, but we just need to open up the possibility for people to become citizens more and more. I mean, we want them to be paying their taxes, contributing. They already pay taxes in terms of sales taxes and some other types of like taxes, but income taxes, property taxes, other taxes that really help day-to-day things. We have all these people using infrastructure, for example, that are not paying property taxes or income taxes. Can't we? I mean, they are helping us. They're working and productive members of society. I just think the more immigration, the better, frankly. The more citizens we have, the better. Otherwise, we're screwed. People are having less babies. Elon Musk talks about this all the time. Oh, we're having less babies. Okay, well, then we need to have more freaking immigrants. Thoughts on AOC running? Yeah, I think she's probably my number one pick right now. I think I don't even agree with her on everything, but I just think she's the most dynamic and exciting possibility. And I think that she would do well with people that normally you wouldn't think would like her. I think would like her. The only question is, are Americans ready for a female president? There's still a few, I hate to say it, but there's a few too many sexist voters in the United States of America. We just need to get rid of that. Your only legal option would be if I could be sponsored by a spouse. Okay, yeah, see? We need to get rid of that. We need to make it so that you don't have to be sponsored by a spouse. Tax the rich, yeah. Is that so much to ask, right? Right. Andy Bashir is pretty solid as well. He's a little bit boring, though. He doesn't quite have the riz like I'd want. AOC has more riz. Wasn't ready. Was Teddy Roosevelt ready? I mean, come on. Although, yeah, if AOC did run in 2028, I think she would, and if she was actually elected, I think she would be the youngest elected president in American history, which is kind of crazy. Okay, I found a couple polls. I don't know. I'm not going to dig them up right now, but he was over 50%, which for a national population, like to be polled nationally and to be over 50% is a big deal these days. Very few politicians poll higher than 50%, and he was one of them. So when I brought up 70% earlier, I was talking specifically in New York City. Most politicians won't even get higher than 40%. Anyway, let's check out Ryan Getty's video here. Let's dork out. He made a video that was right up my alley, got suggested to me immediately. For those who don't know who Ryan Getty is, we've collaborated a couple times. He is a political scientist, creator who is really good at analyzing general trends. I think has been pretty good at kind of describing the current political moment. Obviously, he leans to the left and agrees with me on a lot of issues. That always helps when you watch somebody. But I've met him before. We've had, like I said, collaborations, and he's somebody I've really grown to respect, who is pretty level-headed when it comes to analyzing politics. And he's constantly looking at things through a historical lens. So I strongly encourage you check him out. Subscribe if you want. We're going to watch his video, Why Did We Stop Amending the Constitution? Which I know you guys all are smart. You're smart students. You already know that, hey, the last time the Constitution was amended was 1992. And it's only been amended since the Bill of Rights 17 times. So in 230 some years, only amended 17 times. That's pretty crazy. What you probably hear just now is a helicopter. Hopefully we're not being attacked right now. Oh no, they're just flying by. Okay, so let's check out this video here. Why did we stop amending the Constitution?
A proposed constitution.
See, that's much louder. See, the Dolan Institute needs to figure that out. Now it's really loud. Okay, you can turn down the volume.
Constitutional amendment limiting the president's power to pardon people is making its way through Congress. This has drawn some news coverage because lately the presidential pardon power has come under bipartisan criticism.
So it's a Pardon Integrity Act. It says that with 20 members of the House and 5 members of the Senate, we can force a review within 60 days of a presidential pardon. And with 2/3 of a majority of both houses, we can overturn it.
Republicans, of course, were upset with President Biden for pardoning his son, Hunter Biden, and Democrats have criticized Trump both for his pardons of prominent political allies and his pardons of Trump supporters who attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. The amendment was first proposed by Maryland Congressman Johnny Olszewski, but it recently attracted its first Republican co-sponsor, Don Bacon of Nebraska. The amendment would create a process allowing Congress to nullify a presidential pardon with a 2/3 vote in each chamber. If the proposed amendment...
I like it. I like that idea. I've criticized both Democrats and Republican presidents for abusing their pardoning power. You know, famously, right before he left office, Joe Biden pardoned his son, Hunter Biden. And, you know, when Hunter Biden looked like he was going to get into some trouble. So, yeah, like... this amendment sounds reasonable to me.
Amendment can get 2/3 of the House and the Senate to affirm it. It would then need to be ratified by 3/4 of the states before officially becoming part of the U.S. Constitution. It's notable that this proposed amendment has some bipartisan support, but the road ahead for the pardon reform amendment is tough.
Okay, so again, why is it tough? You not only need 2/3 support from both houses of Congress, both the Senate and the House. You also need 3/4 of every state to ratify it, to approve of it. That's a very tall task for even stuff that's really popular. So I'm assuming that he's going to talk about a lot of this in this video.
The National Archives say that over 11,000 amendments to the Constitution have been proposed in Congress. And of course, only 27 have ever actually become part of the Constitution. The situation looks even more grim for potential amendments when we remember that 10 of those amendments, the Bill of Rights, were passed right after the Constitution was first ratified. So since the Bill of Rights, the Constitution has only been amended 17 times. The last time the U.S. Constitution was amended was in 1992 after a student at UT Austin discovered that a constitutional amendment preventing congressional raises from going into effect until after the next congressional election was passed by Congress along with the rest of the Bill of Rights back in the day. And there was no time limit on getting states to ratify this proposed amendment. So
what's interesting about that, I was going to make a video about that story. It was just like some random dude wrote Congress saying, hey, this is one of the original Bill of Rights, and it's a no-brainer. Everybody supports it. Why don't we go ahead and add it to the Constitution? And it got enough attention from certain members of Congress at the time in the late 80s, early 1990s, and then media attention that it actually passed. It was a big freaking deal. But back then, 1992, much less polarizing time. So the combination of less polarization in Congress and the fact that it was a no-brainer that members of Congress shouldn't be able to give themselves raises while they're still in their current term. Almost everybody agrees with that. But yeah, what's interesting also about this is that there was another amendment that was a part of the original Bill of Rights. And some of you already know what I'm going to say here. It was Article the First. It was the very first one that was mentioned. George Washington promoted it, and it said that for every representative in the House, there could be no more than 30,000 constituents that representative represented. The ratio in that one, hey, I say we passed that amendment. All these years later, still sounds good to me, right? Because I mean, we still have 435 members of Congress. We've had 435 since 1929, almost 100 years, even though the population is more than tripled. The average member of the House now represents nearly 800,000 people. And back in the early days of the Republic, it was 30,000 people. So, yeah, let's just do that as well. But I digress.
Through pressure generated by a letter writing campaign, enough states approved the amendment after 200 years, officially making the 27th Amendment part of the Constitution. So all that's very cool. But if we stop to think about it, the fact that the 27th Amendment was such a special case actually makes things look worse for the prospects of an entirely new constitutional amendment today. The 27th was able to basically bypass one of the major hurdles, congressional approval, because Congress had approved it back in 1789. Excluding the 27th Amendment, it's been 54 years since the last time an amendment went through what we might call the normal process of being proposed by Congress and then ratified by the states within the same century.
He's referring to the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, by the way.
That was the 26th Amendment, which lowered the voting age to 18 to match the age that people can be drafted.
Oh, I thought he was talking about like how we almost got the ERA, but he's talking about the one that passed. So yeah, 1972, I think Nixon was all for that, lowering the voting age to 18.
Drafted to fight in a war. This was an incredibly salient issue in 1971, since the Vietnam War was still ongoing. Because this proposed pardon reform amendment is getting some attention right now, constitutional amendments in general are back in the news. That's why I think it's important for us to understand why it's so hard to get a constitutional amendment passed today. So the most obvious answer to this question is just partisanship. In the same way that living in a more partisan country has made lots of things having to do with government more difficult to accomplish, it's also made amending the Constitution more difficult. It's hard to imagine 2/3 of Congress agreeing on much of anything, much less change to the Constitution. Even if an amendment was a pretty straightforwardly good idea, it would need to be presented from the very start as a bipartisan thing. Otherwise, one side would never go for it, just because getting a constitutional amendment passed would be perceived as such a monumental political win for the side that was championing it. But there's a few other reasons that I think we don't see constitutional amendments much these days that go beyond just partisanship. Do you remember this moment from 2025?
Today, I affirm the Equal Rights Amendment to have cleared all the necessary hurdles to be added to the U.S. Constitution now.
That was meaningless.
The Equal Rights Amendment is the law of the land now.
Yeah, that was completely meaningless when he said that.
It's the 28th Amendment to the Constitution now.
Right at the end of his term in office, President Biden declared that the Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA, had been ratified by 3/4 of the states and therefore was part of the Constitution. The Equal Rights Amendment reads, "The equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex." There's just one problem, though. The National Archivist, the person who'd have to officially certify that the amendment is part of the Constitution, refused to do it. The National Archivist, Colleen Shogan, said that the ERA cannot be certified as part of the Constitution.
Who I got to interview, by the way. I got to interview her a few weeks ago. I posted the interview online if you want to watch it. Anyway.
Due to establish legal, judicial, and procedural decisions. This is because Congress imposed a deadline for the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment that was passed in 1982. And since 2025 was well after 1982, the ERA could not become part of the Constitution. Now, the Biden administration and lots of other groups argue that the time limit that was imposed on the ERA isn't legitimate. And since enough states have ratified the ERA since 1982 to meet that 3/4 threshold, the ERA should therefore be the 28th Amendment. If you're confused at this point, I would not blame you. To explain what's going on here, we have to talk a little bit about the history of the Equal Rights Amendment. This history is also going to help us understand why it's so difficult to get a constitutional amendment passed. In 1923, the first version of the Equal Rights Amendment was introduced in Congress. The most important leader in this early fight for the ERA was Alice Paul, a women's rights activist that was also instrumental in the passage of the 19th Amendment, which guarantees the right to vote for women. The campaign for the ERA started there, but it struggled for decades due to opposition from social conservatives, of course, but it also was opposed by labor unions and people like Eleanor Roosevelt, who felt that women needed special protection, not equality. The situation began to change in the 1970s. The creation of organizations like the National Organization for Women was really important here, along with reduced opposition to the ERA from some of the groups like labor unions that had opposed it in the past. Congress finally passed the Equal Rights Amendment in 1972 and sent it to the states for ratification. At that time, it looked like we would soon have a new amendment to the Constitution.
It's also important to note, okay, I bring this up many times, but just kind of to review this. When we talk about periods of American history, there's really only a few windows where we see actual amendments to the Constitution. Really, I think three. There's three windows, unless you count the beginning with the Bill of Rights. You know, I guess if you count that, that's four. But excluding the early Republic days, the 1780s, 1790s, you've got the Reconstruction amendments. So the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, specifically dealing with the aftermath of the Civil War and how to give more rights to recently freed slaves, enslaved people. So that was the first wave of amendments. Boom, boom, boom. 13th, 14th, 15th. But then nothing for decades. Nothing for decades. Then you have the Progressive Era. That's the second big reform period where you get boom, 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 more amendments. This is where you get prohibition. You get the income tax. You get the direct election of senators. You get women getting the right to vote. And then for several decades, nothing. Okay. Then you get the third reform movement, which is where you get boom, boom, boom. You get the 1960s and 1970s. So in the 60s, you got rid of the poll tax. Of course, a lot of laws happened that didn't have to amend the Constitution. But they were still a big freaking deal, part of the civil rights movement, war on poverty stuff. But you also had, raising or lowering the voting age. This is in the early 70s was the closest we got to getting rid of the Electoral College. And yes, the ERA actually, so it was really close. I mean, we're talking just a couple of states difference. Both of those things probably would have passed. There's just a couple of states holding out, maybe 3 or 4 states. But I'm telling you, we were pretty unified in the 60s and 70s. We were very unified. And that was the last time. So I think we're long overdue for another period of boom, boom, boom amendments to the Constitution. Back to Ryan.
But it wasn't smooth sailing for the ERA at this point either.
Within 2 years, 30 of the necessary 38 states had ratified the ERA. Iowa was the fourth state to do so.
Like I
But
said,
after
2
that
states.
initial sweep, the opposition began to marshal its forces, and the drive for ratification ground to a halt as it faced determined resistance. At this debate, speaking against the ERA is Phyllis Schlafly.
Phyllis Schlafly was a conservative activist and the leader of the Stop ERA campaign.
Yep.
Stop, in this case, stood for Stop Taking Our Privileges. She successfully mobilized opposition to the Equal Rights Amendment. In this pamphlet, the Stop ERA campaign claims that if passed, the Equal Rights Amendment would, among other things, invalidate all laws which require a husband to support his wife, eliminate the ability of women to draw Social Security based on her husband's earnings, legalize all abortion, legalize gay marriage, force men and women to compete against each other in sports, and make women subject to the draft. Ultimately, after a long campaign and an extension of the original deadline for ratification by the states imposed by Congress, the Equal Rights Amendment fell just short of the number of states it needed to be ratified. More states ratified the ERA even after this deadline, which is how we got to the place where
Yep.
President Biden was claiming it was now law right at the end of his term. There have been several attempts to
But the problem is states that previously approved of it now would not have approved it. So
in the Constitution since the ERA fight. Amendments to define marriage as between a man and a woman or ban flag desecration have failed. Balanced budget amendments failed. An amendment to give DC full representation in Congress failed. And plenty of other less notable proposed amendments all failed. Hey, just interjecting for a second to say, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, send it to a friend. Maybe we just have a whole generation of politicians that don't really see the point in trying. We were on a roll there for a while. 4 amendments ratified in a decade. The 23rd Amendment was ratified in 1961, and the 26th was ratified in 1971. But since then, nothing but failures for decades, excluding, of course, the special case of the 27th Amendment, since it was basically already halfway through the process by the time interest in it picked up in the 90s. Chuck Grassley is in his 90s. He is the 6th longest serving senator ever. He's been in the Senate since the 80s, and he's been in Congress since 1975. Even he is not old enough to remember the last time a constitutional amendment went through the normal process of being approved by Congress and then ratified by the states. This means that every federal level politician genuinely has no memory of amending the Constitution being a thing that people could actually successfully do. It's like that Onion skit where Congress forgets how to pass laws. Politicians, political...
that's one of my favorite videos. The Onion, if you look it up. Yeah, let's look that up right now, actually. I love that video so much. Congress forgets how to pass a law. This is an old one.
This is the Onion News Network, a 24-hour non-stop news assault.
And in Washington this afternoon, Congress attempted to pass a law but failed after neither the House nor the Senate could remember how to do it.
For more details, here's Onion News Network Washington correspondent Jane Carmichael.
Hi, Brooke. The bill in question is the Challenger Memorial Statue Act of 2011, which would allocate $50,000 to create a memorial to the Challenger astronauts at the Air and Space Museum. The bill has unanimous support from both Republicans and Democrats, but unfortunately, it's been so long since they actually passed any legislation that not one person in Congress remembers the protocol for making a bill into a law.
Well, Jane, you'd think as lawmakers, they'd be passing bills all the time.
Well, they introduce a lot of bills, but then usually they get held up in questioning the motives and patriotism of whoever proposed them.
But didn't they just pass 1 or 2 bills last year?
They did, but each time they had to go to former Senator Chris Dodd to help them through the process. He was apparently the go-to guy for that kind of thing, but now that he's retired...
Well, why can't they just call him?
Well, they did reportedly, but he told them, quote, "I don't work there anymore and I'm not about to do charity work." At that point, several senators tried to go online to find instructions on bill passing, but then quickly became distracted updating their Twitter feeds with disparaging remarks about political rivals and checking Facebook.
Anyway, it's a great video. It's almost over, but let's go back to Ryan. It's serious now. Come on. Focus, class. Focus.
donors and parties also all have their own incentives that make spending time on a constitutional amendment a risky proposition. If you're a politician, you might talk about a constitutional amendment as a bit of political theater, but you know as well as anyone else that 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of the states is a very high bar. And you probably want to make the central promises of your campaign something more tangible than I'll introduce a doomed to fail amendment to the Constitution. If you're a political donor that's looking for influence, how do you benefit from funding a constitutional amendment campaign? You can't pay $1,000 to attend a fundraising dinner with a constitutional amendment, can you? But you can with a senator. If you're a political party, why would you want to spend all this money on a national campaign to amend the Constitution, despite the fact that all recent evidence suggests that this money would probably be wasted when you could spend that money supporting candidates in tough races where there's a much more clear and direct political impact? The incentives are just all wrong. Plus, we do our constitutional amending a little differently these days anyway.
I liked beer. I still like beer.
The Supreme Court is the highest court in the
now the court just reinterprets things.
Country, and they have the power to interpret the Constitution. As you might know, this has led to some controversy. Just today, the Supreme Court released a ruling declaring that many of Donald Trump's tariffs are unconstitutional. This is a huge win for the Democratic Party and a ruling that returns some power claimed by the president to Congress. Notably, reaching this result did not require amending the Constitution, just a Supreme Court ruling. I mention this because it's a current example, but let's think about just how much power the Supreme Court has for a second. Probably the most famous Supreme Court case of the last several years is the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization case, which overturns the even more famous Roe v. Wade case, which guaranteed some protection of abortion rights. Roe was decided in 1973, and it guaranteed a right that was previously unavailable in most of the country. Dobbs was decided in 2022, and it removed that right. Both of these cases changed our understanding of what rights we fundamentally have as Americans, and both were made possible not because of constitutional amendments, but because of fights over the Supreme Court. In the middle of the 20th century.
And I'm glad he mentioned this because, you know, you have very impactful Supreme Court decisions like Citizens United v. FEC, which, you know, I'm sure you've heard of. I made a video about it. It's in my book. It's a very big case. It's the reason why this upcoming midterm elections, we're going to see $2 billion spent on campaigns, hundreds of millions of dollars spent on individual races, which is just insane. But that, I'm afraid you can't overturn Citizens United unless you actually amend the Constitution. I mean, that seems to be the only way to do it. And yeah, I mean, so yeah, I get why so many people are just like, we just have to focus on the Supreme Court. We need to get better people in the Supreme Court, maybe expand the Supreme Court.
Conservatives were very frustrated with the Supreme Court. It was controlled by liberals for the longest time under Chief Justice Earl Warren. The Warren Court achieved massive wins for liberals, most famously outlawing segregation in public schools with the famous Brown v. Board of Education case. Adding to the pain for conservatives, it seemed like even justices appointed by Republican presidents ended up not being reliable allies. Earl Warren himself was appointed by Eisenhower, and Harry Blackmun, who wrote the Roe v. Wade opinion, was appointed by Richard Nixon. In the Reagan administration, when Reagan had the opportunity to fill a fourth vacancy on the Supreme Court, there was significant pressure to pick somebody who would be a reliable conservative. This led us to the Supreme Court fight that I think is seen as being the beginning of our modern era of more contentious Supreme Court nominations.
Yeah.
Robert Bork was a well-known conservative. He played a role in Watergate even. He was the guy that Nixon was able to eventually get to fire Archibald Cox, the Watergate special prosecutor. This move was widely seen as an attempt to cover up Watergate, and so Democrats hated Bork from the very start. This hatred for Bork was magnified by the fact that he was an outspoken conservative. He's sometimes called the father of originalism, which is the judicial philosophy that today conservatives usually claim to adhere to. I just want to take a aside here to remind everyone the next time someone gives you a lecture about the right to privacy or something else not being listed specifically in the Constitution, you should point them to the Ninth Amendment, the enumeration in the Constitution.
Heck yeah, Ninth Amendment, shout out.
Of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. But anyway, Democrats and
The way I always say that, I always describe the Ninth Amendment is the Bill of Rights. It was not a complete list, that you have rights that are outside of the Constitution.
liberals at this point knew the power of the Supreme Court, and Senator Ted Kennedy led the opposition to Bork's nomination. He delivered a pretty famous speech about his opposition, usually called Bork's America.
In the Watergate scandal of 1973, two distinguished Republicans, Attorney General Elliot Richardson and Deputy Attorney General William Ruckelshaus, put integrity and the Constitution ahead of loyalty to a corrupt president. They refused to do Richard Nixon's dirty work, and they
Boy, we need some more courageous politicians in the Trump administration, don't we?
refused to obey his order to fire Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox. The deed devolved on Solicitor General Robert Bork, who executed the unconscionable assignment that has become one of the darkest chapters for the rule of law in American history. Robert Bork's America is a land in
You got nothing on today.
which women would be forced into back alley abortions, blacks would sit at segregated lunch counters, rogue police could break down citizens' doors in midnight raids, and school children could not be taught about evolution. President Reagan is still our president, but he should not be able to reach out from the muck of Irangate, reach into the muck of Watergate, and impose his reactionary vision of the Constitution on the Supreme Court and on the next generation of Americans. No justice would be better than this injustice.
Ultimately, Bork's nomination was defeated, and Reagan would go on to appoint Anthony Kennedy instead, who would be a crucial swing vote on the court for a long time to come.
Yeah, it's after that for many years, if a Supreme Court justice nomination got rejected, they said, oh, they got borked because of this, because of Robert Bork. Get it? Borked, Robert Bork, borked.
Most famously, he sided with liberals in the 2015 Obergefell v. Hodges case that guaranteed the right to marry for same-sex couples. The story of the Warren Court, Bork, and some of these landmark Supreme Court cases, I think, does a good job at emphasizing just how important the Supreme Court has been in making big changes for things like separation of powers and even fundamental rights. The fact that the court has shown itself to be this powerful, I think, further displaces energy that might go towards a constitutional amendment into winning Senate seats, since the Senate is the body that confirms Supreme Court nominations. Not only are incentives better aligned for politicians, donors, and political parties, as we talked about earlier, but if you're able to achieve massive gains with control of the Supreme Court anyway, why not focus most of your energy there? The president.
Yes, to answer your question, Exel, Iran-gate was the same thing as Iran-Contra. This was 1987. Iran-Contra was on everybody's minds at this time. Very good question. You're a good student. Okay, let's wrap this up.
The presidential pardon amendment that we talked about at the beginning of this video has the advantage of being bipartisan, but as I've been able to make clear, it still has a long road ahead of it if it's going to become part of the Constitution. So many forces are aligned against it, but at the same time, amendments are a crucial part of our constitutional process. If we just don't do them anymore, are we doomed to all our amending being done with judicial interpretations forever? One of the advantages of having a written constitution in the first place is that it's supposed to make the rights of people as well as the role of and limits on government clear. Wouldn't this kind of just fly in the face of that principle? At the same time, though, because it's just so hard to amend the Constitution, the thresholds are so high, it's hard to see a path forward towards a situation like we had in the 60s and 70s, where there were 4 amendments in a decade. The Constitution also provides a method for amending the Constitution that hasn't been used before. If 2/3 of the states want one, a constitutional convention can be called to propose amendments. Some people think that this is a solution, and maybe, but would anyone be comfortable with the people that would be delegates to this 21st century constitutional convention? I live in Texas. Is Ted Cruz going to be my Alexander Hamilton? I don't know. I remain unconvinced here. But I do think it's absolutely necessary to get back to a point where constitutional amendments are part of the conversation. Our Constitution can't just stay frozen in time forever. It's meant to be changed, and it has to change over time to stay relevant to the lives of Americans. But in the meantime, there's one more amendment that was passed by Congress that hasn't yet been ratified, and it has no time limit on ratification, that I want to highlight for you. The Titles of Nobility Amendment, which strip American citizenship from any American citizen that accepts a title of nobility or gift or really anything at all from a foreign monarch or power without the consent of Congress. It was proposed in the 1800s. It's already been ratified by some states, so it's got a bit of a head start. And at any point, enough states could ratify this amendment, making it part of the Constitution. Might be somewhat useful if we ever had a president that had a habit of accepting gifts from oil princes in the Middle East or something like that. But that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching.
right.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Great video. For those who don't know or don't remember, I made a video, wow, over 5 years ago now, with my amendment list, my amendment wish list for my birthday. Here are 10 proposed amendments to the Constitution I would like to see passed, ratified. One of them was make it easier to amend the Constitution, because I think right now that threshold of 3/4 of the states, 2/3 of both houses of Congress, I think that's too much. And yeah, I kind of frankly agree. More and more people are talking about this. Maybe we do need a new constitutional convention just to kind of revamp things entirely. Not a bad idea. One final thing before I go. Check out my subreddit. It's been pretty active lately, especially with uncapping the House stuff. I have a viewer who reached out to their representative and maybe changed their mind on uncapping the House. Their representative is Alma Adams, and now Alma Adams, thanks to their support, ostensibly supports HR 2797, which is another bill that it doesn't call for uncapping the House, but it calls for investigating uncapping the House, which I'm also for. Hey, if they're going to support that, then that's a start, baby. That's a freaking start. Let's do it. So anyway, check out the subreddit there. There's also a Project No Cap subreddit that I highly encourage you to join. I wish it was a little bit more active. It's been kind of quiet over there lately. But yeah. Otherwise, today I'm going to release a video that's pure propaganda trying to convince people that we need to uncap the House. That's coming out soon on my channel. Check out the Gavin Newsom interview. I'll probably have some clips from that on uploaded as shorts as well, probably to Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for being here every Friday. Friday morning at 9 a.m. Central, I do this. I react to current events or history videos or politics videos. Yeah, spread the word. You're a great class. Somebody had a question I was going to answer, but I can't remember where it was. Term limits for Supreme Court? Yes, I am for that. No, this is earlier, I think. Anyway, I can't remember. I'm sorry. But thanks for being here. Yeah, I got to go because I got to get a haircut and I got to go to the bathroom. So have a good weekend, everybody. Take care. Bye.